Welcome to the Old Young Ones. We are in season 2. We are in the first episode of season 2. We are talking about Bambi. Now, you may have said, you two morons already talked about Bambi. Well, yes, we did, because it is our favorite episode of the season.
Favorite!
And when I listened back to that episode, it was just the two of us saying that everything that happened is the greatest thing that ever happened.
Because it was.
I was like, you know what? That's a great spirit, but it's not great radio. And it's not even radio. It's a podcast. So I also realized that I cannot do a podcast without having
by yourself.
No, well, I can't do it by myself. But I also have never done a series without Elliott Serrano, so why start now?
Exactly.
As I want to welcome Chicago's King of Geeks, who is the creator of the Shaken Not Heard podcast, the MCU Review podcast, which I co-host, the Top Men in Indiana Jones podcast, which I have co-hosted. He is regularly on AM radio. He created a Geek Counter Geek. He is probably has a podcasting resume longer than anyone else's. And Elliott is here. How are you?
All right. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, I have fulfilled that prophecy that Andy Warhol made way back when. In the future, everyone will have 15 podcasts. Or was it something else? Like something along those lines.
Yes.
And thank you for calling us gentlemen. That's the first time ever anyone's ever done that.
It was sarcastic, I feel, though.
Probably. Because everyone knows we ain't gentlemen.
There was a little sting in there. There was a little bit of the razor blade tape
Gentlemen.
boxing glove. That was the thing.
Hello, gentlemen.
It's the stinger. Well, so Elliott has never seen The Young Ones. I was going to say this is the first time that happened, but we found out Mike Brum, the senior producer on Late Night with Stephen Colbert, who did, I believe, Boring. We found out he had never seen it. And I was like, but you work in comedy. And he was like, yeah, but it was pretty good because he's an upbeat guy. Now, Elliott, you are well known as a sci-fi expert, as a geek expert, which is one of the reasons that we spend so much time talking to each other. But I know you're a funny guy, and I know you know about comedy. What is your background with British comedy?
It's funny because I know when we discussed, I remember when you were discussing doing this podcast even beforehand, and you were talking about this show and how much you love this show and how it was like this wonderful experience of yours, and that you'd be, want to redo it and so on. I was like, man, this must be a hell of a show. So watching Bambi made me go back and revisit my experience with British humor, which, I mean, how many people, when you talk, I think in our generation, we all got exposed to Monty Python, right? Monty Python's Flying Circus. Then there was Benny Hill.
Oh, God, yeah.
So everyone knew Benny Hill. I remember what my first exposures to British humor was. Benny Hill, Monty Python's Flying Circus, and there was a third one. I remember when Benny Hill would show. They'd show it on a Channel 32. That's what we called it before it became.
We had Channel 21. That was the New York one.
Okay. The other show I saw, and I'm trying to, I would you believe I bookmarked it so I would remember the name of the dude, but now I'm scrolling through my bookmarks and I can't find it. It was Kenny Everett, the Kenny Everett video show or video hour, and so they would show Benny Hill the first half hour, and then the Kenny Everett video show the second half hour. And that was a completely different kind of show. It was closer to what, when I was watching this episode of The Young Ones, I was like, oh, this is what it feels like. Very, like a very broad type of humor, a lot of jokes set up, boom, bing, bang, boom. And he had characters and situations and trying to be, and I don't remember with him because he was very edgy with his humor back then, which was like in the 70s and 80s. And I remember I watch it now and I'm like, oh, that's pretty kind of tame when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I saw it again as a young person, I was thinking like 9, 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching this and I'm like, ooh, wow. Okay. So as far as British humor, I have to admit, a lot of it just didn't hit me. Not the majority of it. I mean, I could see why people thought it was funny. I just didn't think it was funny. It didn't hit my funny bone.
Was there any show that you thought like hit a wall with you, where people really loved it, and to this day you're like, nah, like.
Well, you talking about as far as British shows go?
Yeah, like do you still can't watch the British Office, or have you never you don't understand Kunk on Earth?
But was that was gonna say. Now, if I flash forward, like if I look at the British Office, if I look at Kunk on Earth, if I look at Extras, the other Ricky Gervais, see, and that was what was also made me think. As I'm watching this episode, I'm like, oh, now I get that joke that Ricky Gervais was doing all through the second series of Extras when he created his own sitcom called When the Whistle Blows, and it's these exaggerated characters. It all takes place in one room,
it's a bad British sitcom.
Yeah, bad British sitcom. I'm like, oh, now I get it. Kind of like when I did Shaken Not Heard, and I watched Dr. No, and for the life of me, because I'd never seen Dr. No like from beginning to end until I did Shaken Not Heard. Now they're going, oh, now I see what Austin Powers is making fun of the whole time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of for me. It was like, oh, okay, I get it. So British humor for me, few things worked. But when it worked, it really worked. And like with this episode that you guys asked me to watch, the moment Hugh, Laurie, and
Stephen Fry.
Yeah, Stephen Fry and
Emma Thompson
show up, then it got fucking hilarious. I thought they were hilarious.
They are.
Yeah, they were, and we talk a lot about Blackadder, which is my favorite British comedy, which is Rowan Atkinson before Mr. Bean, and all of those people, including Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson and Nigel Planner, all of those people migrate over to Blackadder. So you see a lot. There's a lot of Fry and Laurie, and Fry and Laurie originally had their own like 2-man sketch show, which was very dry, but it was like dry and clever. It reminded me of. To get topical, Martin Mull passed away this week at the age of 80. So I went, and I always liked Martin Mull because I always felt like he had a dignity in the way that Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie did. Like, he never went big. He never debased himself. He didn't do pratfalls but he was always very calm. He was like a calm center that was very dry and wry. And I felt like Fry and Laurie had that. So I started watching, Fernwood Tonight.
Yes.
Which was Howie. I don't even know if you know this, but it was 70s. It was a network show, but it was a 70s local talk show parody. And it was like that took place in Fernwood, Ohio. And it was a spinoff of Mary Hartman. So it came out in 77. So in that peak Norman Lear, which I think Norman Lear was the producer on it. It came out in that peak Norman Lear era. So, shows I know you love, like All in the Family and the Jeffersons and Sanford and Son. And this show in the middle of it was Martin Mull and Fred Willard. And,
okay, cool.
And I realize now that Fred Willard, even though he's passed on, Fred Willard can't open his mouth without me laughing every single time. And so Martin Mull was the host and Fred Willard was the sidekick, and they both played their parts. Martin Mull was a little sleazy and a little insulting to people, and Fred Willard was happy and dumb as a post.
Okay.
And it was really, really dry. I watched the first episode, and they had a talk show segment called Talk to a Jew.
Oh, God.
Because they had never seen anybody Jewish. So they just brought him out, and they asked him questions about Barbra Streisand.
That's hysterical.
It's hysterical, but it was really dry and quiet.
I see that.
And Nick at Night would show it.
Really, Nick at Night?
Yeah, but that's where I discovered it. And it had the same effect on me that SCTV did. When I first saw SCTV, that I was like, I know something's happening here, but I don't know what it is.
Right.
Because I'm not seeing setup punchline.
Gotcha.
I'm not seeing funny guy, straight man. I'm not seeing big laugh, pause for laughter. It's just doing something that I'm drawn into, but I can't break it apart and look at the components. And SCTV eluded me for years. I would just stare at it. I knew it was full of good people, but I didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
And Fernwood Tonight was like that. And then I ended up watching a few episodes, and you can find them all on YouTube now. I don't think they're streaming anywhere. But Fry and Laurie kind of had that thing. But also the young ones had that thing, but in a much more manic way. It's like I don't quite know what the jokes are. I don't know what the premises are. I don't know what the setups and the punchlines are. But they're doing something.
They're doing something.
Like, where is it going? Because it's
exactly.
The episode starts like literally with somebody running, and that's
Neil. Yep, down the street.
Right, and he's running, and there's a phone ringing.
The phone's ringing.
There's all this tension building up, and something's happening.
About
and
Mary guys are sitting at a party.
And I'm like, where is this going? But then boom, then boom, then boom, then boom, then Motorhead appears. Like what?
That's right. Music.
Now, to be fair, I gave you nothing.
No.
That's right.
I wanted to see how you would react.
I went completely blind to this thing. Because mind you, I had never watched this show before.
But that's the thing. It's just like we all went in there initially completely blind. And I think you either like are just like, oh my God, they're on a trip and I'm along for the ride and I love it. Or you could be my wife and be like, they're mean and they're yelling at each other and I don't like this.
Now, just to be clear, you're not taking job applications for a wife. Because you did just say you can be my wife. And I don't want to look at the comment section.
Wait, who said that?
You said that.
I said you could be my wife?
No, you said that. Yes.
Wow.
You said you could either go along with it or
you could be my wife. I see what you're doing.
You said that. No. You said I'm funny.
His name is Rick. I don't know. It sounds like I don't know.
Yeah.
Kids in the Hall, they destroyed the Who's on First sketch. Which was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
See, and I'm watching you. Thank you for bringing up Kids in the Hall because I remember.
You're welcome. Thank you for bringing up Benny Hill.
Yeah, no, but I'm watching this episode and I'm like, some things is just not hitting with me right now. It's just not. It took a while before things started hitting with me.
Right.
That was my same experience with Kids in the Hall, where I'm like they are so out there and just they're taking things so far beyond what I've known in comedy.
Yep.
But when they hit. When they finally get you there where they want you to go and they hit you with like the punchline, then you're dying at that point.
That's funny because both of those examples, the first time I saw them, each one of them, I didn't know what I was going to see. I saw the Kids in the Hall special, which ended up being the pilot, and just heard there was a new sketch troupe. And I love. In fact, there was a Rolling Stone article before that said Monty Python for the 80s. So I was like, well, I'm watching this.
Well, now.
Compliment. It grabbed me. The first sketch of the first episode grabbed me was that you see they show an alley and there's people rifling through the garbage and they're all wearing tuxedos. And then Bruce McCullough goes, hey, you millionaires, get out of that garbage. And they all look like raccoons and run. And I was like, oh, I'm here. And the young ones was the same thing. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm here. But I do have that experience of some shows I've loved, like Always Sunny. Like I didn't like Always Sunny for about 6 episodes. I didn't, and then it hit, and I don't know what it like with Always Sunny. I realized, oh, I'm not supposed to like them, and I'd spent 6 episodes not liking these characters, so I wasn't enjoying it. And then it just, or like Beavis and Butthead. I didn't like Beavis and Butthead for a couple of years.
What?
Well, honestly, Beavis and Butthead got better.
It did. It really did. The first episode.
Those first few episodes are not.
They're a little rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
But sometimes when it takes a while to hit, that's even more rewarding because you felt like you'd done the work.
Well, I got a question for Elliott. The question for Elliott is this. It's just like, I know there's the plot where it's just like, where are these guys going? They're all yelling at each other. There's all of a sudden there's a rock band. What did you think when they brought out an elephant and all those ridiculous puppets?
And Robbie Coltrane.
Hagrid.
This is where I come across as a total nerd. The first thing I thought was, oh, that's an Indian elephant.
Wow!
The ears are much smaller than on an African elephant. And I was already going, British show bringing in an Indian elephant. What are they trying to say here? Yeah.
Well, he's not. He really is
trying
an
to
elephant.
say what elephants are available Tuesday.
Right.
Because
I got that he was doing the Elephant Man bit.
Yeah.
But
which would have been. We were talking about this on our recap, and we're not. I don't think we're going to recap as much as review this episode.
Right.
But the Elephant Man at the time was a current movie.
Yes.
That's right.
David Lynch starring.
Yeah, it's like 83, and this season is like 84.
Yeah. I remember the commercials. I am not an animal.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. What did you think of an elephant eating an eclair?
That part I was cool with.
Okay, good.
The thing though that it was like that,
good.
And it was like the bit where Robbie Coltrane's got the eclair and he's looking at a slide that has pretty much our entire civilization. Because we're humans, we're actually bacteria or amoeba that are in the shape of human beings. So it's like Robbie Coltrane is God or a supreme being looking down on us, and he feeds the eclair to an Indian elephant. Again, all these levels on this thing. And they're going, this is for once they predate a joke that the Simpsons did.
Yeah. Well, there's an earlier episode in season 1 where they kind of do the same bit where they cut to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and they're arguing about Famine's arguing about a sandwich that he's so hungry, but God keeps giving him sandwiches that he doesn't like. And then he drops the sandwich and they cut to them in the house and a giant sandwich comes in and flattens Dawn French of the Vicar of Dibley. So there was a precedent for God dropping food on them.
Mm-hmm.
But Elliott, I'm really fascinated to know the arc. So it was because as you said, once you saw Fry and Laurie and Emma Thompson, you're like, okay, this is amazing. But you were also, I think part of it may have been like, oh, I'm in safe hands. I know these people.
people.
Robbie Coltrane came, but he didn't stick around.
Yeah. No, it was like I'm at a party and I don't know anybody here and things are kind of weird. And then I get to that corner where, oh, I know them. Okay, I'm going to go hang out with those folks. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, I know.
Emma Thompson, sure, yeah.
Oh, thank God Hugh Laurie's here.
Well, it's not Lord Monty. Yeah.
Because again, and then they have the whole joke about the whole bit where the two universities are going up against each other in a. Was it supposed to be an academic debate or trivia? Or whatever?
It was University Challenge. It's a game show.
Challenge.
Which was a real talk show at the time. And we had to look up Wikipedia, but the reason it's called Bambi is that the name's host was like Bamber. So that's all a pun on it's like somebody riffing on Alex Trebek for 10 minutes.
Got it.
Well, I got a couple more for Elliott. It's like, so as we talked about the elephant, what did you think about the puppets? And what did you think specifically about this one scene where the guy who's got the orange hair with the mohawk, Vivian, is in the train and says, oh, do not stick head out of the window. I wonder why. And he sticks his head out the window and he decapitates himself. Only to pull the brake on the train, walk down the tracks, and start kicking his own head because you took your time, you bastard.
Just the fact that you can't get through it without laughing and Elliott sighing while you're describing it.
Okay, this is what I was thinking, because again, I'm sitting there.
I gotta know.
And my brain is trying to process this. Because I've seen a lot of comedy and a lot of making of comedy. But you know what it will what that whole bit on the train and really that whole sequence there, not just when they were on the train and the guy decapitates himself, or when suddenly all the characters change actors, like it's a
into each other's characters.
Yes. And all that, and so all this just pretty much chaotic stuff is going on.
Mm-hmm.
It made me flash to that documentary "Too Funny to Fail," of the making of the Dana Carvey show.
The Dana Carvey show, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
which had like Steve Carell and Stephen Colbert in the cast, and it was like Dinos Dimopoulos and Louis C.K. writing it, and it lasted 6 episodes.
Right, and Robert Smigel is talking all the time, and they're talking about they're writing these skits, right? Mm-hmm. And these ridiculous things that they're just sitting in the room, just coming up with. Like at one point, there was like Bill Clinton is coming out to give a a speech to the American public, and he's like nursing puppies or something. He has nipples that are lactating, so he's able to nurse some cats or babies.
It's the first sketch of the first episode.
Right.
Wow.
It's the cold open.
You might as well go for it.
And it was in prime time. It came on after Home Improvement.
Go for it.
It came on after Home Improvement, yes. Which is why, and then Smigel has this whole moment where he realizes, like he never realized what they were set up for, coming on after Home Improvement, like the #1 show in America, but a completely different type of humor.
It was probably the most family sitcom of the 90s.
Yeah.
It was the most Cosby Show, like, that wasn't purely for kids, because I think like Full House was on the air. But in the 90s, everything was going towards that Seinfeld Friends movement. And Home Improvement was like Home Improvement was like this flagpole of 80s sitcom.
So Smigel is like going, so that's what was happening. It's like that's why the show didn't take off, because this is what our lead-in was, and it's like the whole. I don't know. With the Smigel thing, I'm not saying it was the case with the young ones, but with Smigel on the show, there seemed like a real air of entitlement, like the whole, well, we think this is funny, we think it's hilarious,
right? And Smigel had left Conan to do this,
and if you don't think it's funny, then it's because there's something wrong with you.
And sometimes that works, because I always get that feeling for Mr. Show. And I love Mr. Show.
I think Mr. Show is hilarious too.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. And I think part of it, though, it's also Odenkirk and David Cross.
Yeah.
They make it work. There's a thing about them
that they couldn't quite. I think because Dana Carvey was kind of out there on his own. Although I will defend, they did a recurring sketch that I thought was brilliant called "The Waiters Disgusted by Food," and it is first of all
pretty good.
The premise is okay, but when I tell you that it is Stephen Colbert and Steve Carell together, dressed as waiters, telling you the specials and almost vomiting.
At one point, I think Stephen Carell does vomit.
It's gold because of the two people doing it.
Mm-hmm. And so to that point, again, back to the young ones, it's like, okay, I was led into something, and now you're throwing a lot of stuff at me that you think is hilarious, and you're being like, it's like you're sitting in the writer's room, and there's like no bad idea here.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just going to do everything. There's no bad idea. Yeah. You know what we're going to do? We're going to have Robbie Coltrane feeding a Claire to an Indian elephant. Hilarious. Yeah. We've got to do that. And like no one said no. No one in the office said, you can't bring an elephant into the soundstage. Well, we will. We're going to do that. We're going to set you up. So when all that stuff, all that chaos is happening, I'm like trying to grab onto something that brought me a little bit of that I knew, and I was again felt a little sense of comfort. And oddly enough, when Motorhead appeared, I'm like, okay, this is out of nowhere, but I know this.
No.
So yeah, the story behind the bands, there is a band in every episode, and the story was they realized the BBC, if they put a band in the middle of the show, the BBC would classify them as a variety show and raise the budget. So every band has no story reason to be there. They just happen.
I think there's only one episode, Flood, that doesn't have a band. Other than that, all all the other episodes have bands.
But it has a lion tamer, so
it's a lion tamer. So I guess that's
a variety show.
The variety show, you know.
So my question is, like you say, there's a band in every episode. Is there a decapitation in every episode?
No, but there's but
there's explosions and there's
like a character does something like that to them that they shouldn't survive, but they do.
There's definitely cartoony humor and everything. Yeah.
They did.
Like South Park, they kill Kenny. Yeah.
Multitude of episodes where you thought that they were dead at the end, but they come back for another episode.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And Mayo and Adrian Edmondson, who plays Vivian, were known as like a great slapstick team. They
literally slap each other.
Yeah.
They do another show in the 90s called Bottom. It's only the two of them, and it's basically the young ones, but now they're in their 30s and no one else lives with them. And it's Three Stooges level of slapstick, where it's like the show is set up for these major set pieces,
right?
For somebody to like fall down and something to crash on them. So that's what they bring to it. And one of the odd things about the young ones was it was this again, that Mr. Show kind of mentality. They were the stars of the alt comedy movement,
right?
In the late 70s, which was very influenced by the punk movement at the same time,
right? So
they brought everybody along with them, whether they fit that idea or not. So like somebody like Alexi Sale does stand up on a train for like 3 minutes because they knew he was a good stand up, and he's the bald guy who, by the way, has a cameo in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Who did he play?
He is the Egyptian general that sells them.
Who wants the Rolls Royce?
In Sussex, you will have horses and tanks. That is Alexi Sale, who's in every episode of The Young Ones.
Yep.
And in this episode, he would usually play a character and then just kind of go into a stand-up. And in this one, he plays like the train engineer, and they just cut to him, and he's not connected to the episode whatsoever.
He's like, standing there at gunpoint for Mexican bandits.
Yeah, he's doing a bit about cookies to a Mexican bandit.
Garibaldis and the dictators, and then he gets into something about sexual perversion and the BBC and all this other stuff, and it's just like it just fits, and sometimes it doesn't fit, and it's just
sometimes it doesn't. But it's like another shade of the show, like puppets. There's always puppets.
What do you think of the hamster?
But hold on, I never said what I thought about the puppets.
Yes. Yeah.
I flashed on the puppets too, and I'm going, "Oh, that's right." And this is where I want to give it some credit too, because you see that sort of humor stuff echoing even now in today's culture. So I'm there going, "Oh, that's right." There are like at least 3 TikTokers I know that do the same thing with puppets now. And
I wonder where they got it from.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably that's where they got it from. So you sit there and you go, okay, I was getting, once I got my bearings with it, because again, this is a hell of a first exposure. Once I got my bearings, I was like, okay, I can appreciate that. I can see where they're going with that. Again, I'm not saying it's hitting with me, but the fact that, but again, when Emma Thompson shows up, and I love Emma Thompson, so
and she's hilarious.
Yes.
She doesn't
Miss Money Sterling,
doesn't get to do comedy as much as
she should.
Everybody else. I feel like there's this, and there's like Men in Black 4.
Then she's not funny in that at all.
Well, no one's funny in that.
I didn't see that.
Oh, don't worry. Don't bother.
That was like, hey, Chris Hemsworth and Valkyrie were funny in Ragnarok. Let's have them save the Men in Black franchise.
Yeah, it was, and they did not. If anything, they kind of buried it.
Yeah, no. Hard pass. Anyways, the funny thing about the show is that a lot of times there are phrases and references that they use that are strictly English that I guess Americans don't get, but for some reason I adopt them.
Yeah, and some are early 80s as well.
When you say "up, scumbag," when you say "up," it must be the English equivalent to "let's go." Let's. Like I said, I'm looking at your shirt. I see the Cubbies on there. By the way, not getting into a whole baseball motif.
A baseball podcast.
No. Don't worry.
Several MCU reviews that did this.
Don't worry about it. I promise you. It won't take more than 15 seconds. I remember just going back to Benny Hill. Mm-hmm. I remember one time watching a Mets game. I recorded it, right? Living back in New York.
Yeah, and after the Mets, way, just to level set, in New York, both Benny Hill and the Mets were shown on Channel 9.
Yeah. So. And Benny Hill followed the Mets. And I don't remember if they won or lost, but I remember I recorded the game on VHS. Maybe they were on the West Coast. Benny Hill followed afterwards. And Benny Hill showed breasts on network TV.
Yeah,
the local affiliate. And I was just like, they must have missed that. And me being a 15-year-old kid, I was kind of like, oh, titties.
There is a sketch of Monty Python's Flying Circus where
I'm done with baseball. That's it.
I think it's Michael Palin is just going through his day and crazy things are happening, and he gets a newspaper, and the woman is completely topless in that. And man, was that recorded and paused when I was 15.
It's funny you should mention that, Howie, because I think I remember seeing that exact same episode of Benny Hill and going, what?
Really? What? They're in the shower, right?
No, I was like, okay, I didn't know. I was going, is it because it's a British show they can do this?
It is, actually.
I think so,
But what I don't know is why they were allowed to re-air it without censoring it.
Right, it was late at night. I remember it was late at night. Yeah, and also the Kenny Everett show also had very risque. There was it was a cartoon where Kenny Everett is a Flash Gordon type of character, and he has a sidekick, and it's a woman, a very voluptuous woman who has a very skin tight suit, and you can see her nipples,
like a heavy metal kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. And I remember going, wow, whoa, they're showing this on. They can show this on TV. Wow.
Now I'm disappointed New York didn't get the Kenny Everett show.
Yeah.
We had it's funny because when you were mentioning Monty Python's Flying Circus, you said it was a Kenny Everett show on Monty Python's Flying Circus. We had Doctor Who and then Monty Python, and that's when I didn't like Doctor Who because I would catch the last 5 minutes of a Tom Baker and be like, "This is the cheapest thing I've ever seen in my entire life."
I never got into it.
It honestly wasn't until they brought it back and David Tennant was doing it that I started watching on the Netflix and got into it. I could not get into that original series. And I remember saying at the time, Star Trek TOS is as cheap as I'm going to go.
Well, it's just, it always had to be the writing. If the writing didn't appeal to you, I think there is a sense of an American sensibility. We're very much these days about the window dressing, right?
Sure.
Like when it comes to movies, if the special effects and all that, if it isn't filmed well, doesn't matter how great the performances are or how what the acting or the script is. We're like, it looks cheap. It looks like crap. And we've gotten. I think there is an American sensibility where we want our stuff to look shiny and new and proper.
Right, and I think that's why Doctor Who's a perfect example because Doctor Who had been declining, Howie, for the last really 5-6 years.
Okay.
And so to bring it back in a big way, they went to Disney. And Disney and the BBC are co-producing Doctor Who now. And they're doing like $10 million an episode.
Yeah, it looks good.
Wow.
It looks
good. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks at least as good as a Marvel show. It's like as good as a WandaVision.
A Marvel television show. Yeah.
Yeah, like it looks like The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Well,
not to stray too far from the show though. And it's I was like, as I'm watching again this and I'm getting more comfortable with it, I will say again, it was back to the whole bit about the type of humor you talk about, the slapstick. Even with the Three Stooges, I never found their slapstick amusing. I always found their dialogue.
I was never a slapstick guy either.
Yeah,
right.
Mo Howard's malapropisms cracked me up all the time.
Well, Billy West taught me how good Larry Fine was.
Yeah. So and then so the dialogue, when I could understand what these guys are saying from time to time, I catch the little jokes here and there. I'm like, okay, that's funny. They're talking pretty fast, and they have these thick accents that I'm only catching so much of it because I couldn't put on like subtitles. So I could read.
You're saying your decades of watching Doctor Who didn't come in handy?
I still have to use subtitles from time to time.
I still have to use subtitles for Doctor Who. And you know what? The older I get, the more I'm using them.
The more I need them, yeah.
Don't feel bad. I use subtitles for Game of Thrones, and that thing is basically in English.
Basically, I like it.
You know?
Yeah, but when you talk about TV having to be shiny and new, I mean, that is a modern thing, but this thing couldn't be more DIY.
That's what I was about to say.
And still be on network.
Yeah.
So, like, I try to equate it to the time, but I have to go back even further because it's an early 80s show that looks like a mid-70s American show because, like, I always think about how Sanford and Son looked like Sesame Street. It was just on videotape.
I've never heard that.
And cluttered.
That is so
and disorganized. And
Howie, I'm with you. I have never heard that comparison, but it is so appropriate.
I have known both of you for decades. How have I never
done this? Wow.
I was like, holy crap, that's true.
You got a point there.
It looks like Oscar the Grouch.
Yes.
Right, Sanford.
Yeah.
And that was 70s television. I mean, even the nicer looking shows like Taxi or All in the Family are still kind of grungy and dirty. So it does come from there, but it's still like it's wearing its punk cred on its sleeve. How slapdash.
Like the show is basically like a punk rock band practicing in a garage, you know, and it's in your face, it's loud, and it's fun.
And it doesn't stay on any one idea too long.
And it does not stay on one idea too long. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like a Ramones concert.
You know, it just for me, like Elliott, you were saying that the time that you felt the most comfortable was when you get to Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry and Emma Thompson. There's a scene right before they come on, or right as they come on, where you see like this hamster who's part of the cast in a way, named SPG. And the thing is that
he's
like
another puppet.
He's a puppet with a Glasgow accent, you know, that Mayhole did, and it's just like, I mean, if you ever took a show with Hugh Laurie, Stephen Fry, and Emma Thompson, and then interjected this hamster that looks like he has a mohawk himself, you know, screaming up scumbag, and then punches a teddy bear, you know, goes back to Laurie and Fry. Like, what show would do this?
Was there a point where you felt like bailing?
Yeah, did you ever feel like turning it off?
Yeah. No, I didn't feel like turning it off. I mean, come on, Howie. The hamster punching a teddy bear is nothing. The sock that comes to life that they literally have to kill, like with the
frying pan,
and then the guy goes, "What? You're a vegetarian? You know, how can you do that? You're a vegetarian." He goes, "The sock's not a vegetable or something." I'm like,
socks aren't vegetables; they should be wiped out.
That actually made me laugh. I was like, okay,
it's a very hippie thing to say, I guess, right?
Right. So. I mean, at that point, it's like I just let go of the reins and let the horse go, because weren't there like objects coming out of walls talking and
don't look at me, I'm irrelevant. Yeah, that thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Just the fact that they had to build that puppet for that cutaway.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I wanted to ask John a question right now, because we saw this together when we were like in our 20s back in the 90s on Comedy Central.
Yeah, we saw it 10 years later, so we saw it in the early 90s when Comedy Central reran them. We talked to other guests that saw them on MTV. MTV aired them in the late 80s. But by the time...
By the way, pour 40 out for Comedy Central, which is finally...
Wait, well, the website...
They pulled the plug, right?
Everything, yep.
Yeah.
Well, the website, they're not shutting the channel down.
Well, was it the entire archive of The Daily Show gone?
Yeah, from what I heard, they're trying to drive people to Paramount Plus.
But they don't have the archive, is what I'm saying. It's like all that.
Yeah, because it's all about Paramount trying to sell.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. No. I was going to ask John, John, do you remember what was the first episode that we saw? Was it Bambi?
Well, I know that I saw it before you did, because you didn't have cable and I did, and I told you about it.
Right.
And I know that I don't know what the first one was, but I do know that I had seen Blackadder first.
Right.
By about a year or two, and I knew the reputation about the young ones. Actually, I think it was Neil Coley was somebody we both went to high school with.
Right.
Who
Okay.
told me that because he was also the guy that got me into Monty Python.
Okay.
And I remember people talking about this show, the way where they would just scream at each other. So when it came out on Comedy Central, I was like, I know the reputation of this.
Right.
But I can't tell you what's the first one I saw. I can't tell you what the first Blackadder I saw was.
Right. Well, it's funny because the thing is that like when you go with the generic sitcom per se, and let's call it a sitcom just for the sake of argument right now. The thing is that like usually the characters like each other, they get into a wacky circumstance and they have a common goal. In this comedy, characters all hate each other. They do not have a common goal. And they just,
they do not have a common plot. They
like have a common plot. Everything is just all over the place.
Well, it seems like the plot is about them going to the laundromat, and then they're at the laundromat for about 2 minutes.
With Felicity Kendall's underwear.
Well, we were saying this last week when we were doing the recap. There's an episode of Mr. Bean where Mr. Bean goes to the laundromat where he stays longer than the young ones do.
Yeah, which that's pretty funny actually. But the funny thing is though is that like some of the revolutionary shows, and I'm going to call this one a revolutionary show. Some people will disagree with me, and that's fine. But Married with Children, when that first came on, it was just like no one had ever seen a show like that before because it was just
that was
they were just completely off the rails.
Well, that show.
I wonder if those guys actually watched a little bit of these guys and been like,
probably.
"Wow,
yeah,
there's characters that don't like each other." And the show's a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that show was designed purely to get Fox attention. It was the first show they premiered with. And they were they just wanted to say they were the first new network in decades. And they wanted to say that we are not like anything you're going to see on the other networks. Elliott?
Married with Children, Tracy Ullman show. Those were the two.
Yeah, those two.
And The Simpsons came from Tracy, right?
And then there was Duet.
Which
I love.
Empty Nest.
And Herman's
Women
Head.
in Prison.
Herman's Head. Oh my God.
Herman's Head. There was Fox is littered with
like Malcolm in the Middle.
With nice tries.
Malcolm in the Middle would come later.
That was around 2000. But those first 5 years, I think really until The Simpsons, Fox is just throwing anything they can.
And something's hit, So you look at a show like The Young Ones.
Still on.
Yeah.
The young ones basically, I think, have more of an influence than people realize.
That's the interesting thing about it. I think we can look at it as a real watershed moment. But one of the reasons we started this podcast is I don't hear people talk about it anymore. The way that in the 90s, when it had been on the 80s, people I know into comedy would talk about it. And some shows have that legacy. I mean, Mr. Show, millennials think Mr. Show created everything because they don't know Monty Python. And I think they were just too young to see Kids in the Hall. Right. Because I think Kids in the Hall was an incredibly important sketch show. And certainly was the one that hit me the hardest. And the first date I had with my ex, who I was with for 20 years, was taking her to see Kids in the Hall live. And that's a show that's pretty cool. People talk about the way they talk about like the Pogues, It's like, you've heard of them, and there's one guy that's really into him, and the more he talks about him, the more you're not going to listen to him.
Now, does Seinfeld fall into that category of
Seinfeld's too big a hit?
Because I don't know, Seinfeld for me has taken a step back. I don't know what it is. I'm just like, recently I've been more into like shows like The Young Ones. That if I see an episode of Seinfeld, I respect it. It's funny. There's no doubt it's not funny. It's definitely funny. But the thing is that like, maybe I prefer Curb Your Enthusiasm more. Well, maybe that took a little out of its sales.
I think Curb was definitely an evolution of Seinfeld. Seinfeld looks a little quaint now that we have so much Curb, but Seinfeld is on reruns in every single city every day. And I see Seinfeld memes every day. Like it's like I Love Lucy. It's just in the public consciousness.
Well, to your point, Howie, I mean, I think maybe there was a time when The Office was going to be that that show that's still, out there. People love it just as much now as they did then. And part of it was the Netflix, it being on Netflix for forever. And then, this next generation caught on and then they got into it. I don't know if you see that as popular as Seinfeld is. I don't know if this new generation is like latching on the Seinfeld on Netflix. Like,
I do see a lot of love.
That could be.
I do see a lot of love for The Office, and personally, I just don't quite click into it. I thought it was really good. I thought it hit its peak for a few seasons, but the whole time it was on, I always thought 30 Rock was a better show. And maybe I was doing stand up at the time, so maybe I was a snob, but I did not think it was the funniest thing on that night.
See, now you talk about think about. So I'm watching this, and also, me, we've had this discussion. There are times when I'm looking at something, I can't help but go writer brain. I'm like, me too. If I were in that writer's room right now, what would I have pitched, or what would have, what wouldn't have worked? Guys, tell me, was this a single cam show or multicam?
It was multicam. Multicam, but like Monty Python, it was multicam with film bits.
Right. Okay. Right. Because it felt, there are times when I'm like, okay, I didn't ever feel the camera move, but there are cuts. So, okay. And then
like when they go out, to the laundromat, that's all film.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and they're going, okay, these guys don't have 50p to do their fucking laundry, but they had money like afterwards to buy a drink.
They had money to get on the train.
To get on the train.
And it is that kind of thing. It's like, we're done with that. So all the rules of that are just gone. This episode, there's a lot of episodes like that where it's like, it's almost like they were SpongeBob, because SpongeBob will do 2 11-minute episodes. It's almost that, but they don't break. Like literally when Neil gets up and yells, "Oh my God, University Challenge," it's now a new episode.
Yep, makes sense.
Nothing that happens in the preceding 15 minutes matters anymore.
And I'm pretty sure the Simpsons writers have said that they lifted that from the young ones.
Yeah,
like,
well, the cut things like that. Yeah, like the beginning scene and the I mean, the Simpsons, the first 5 minutes of every Simpsons doesn't count.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's just. I was just going to say, number one, it's just like talking about like things that, and I don't mean to go over this again and again, but
if you talk about SPG, I am going to cut you off.
Number one, no, it's not about SPG. Number one, happy birthday to Mel Brooks, 98. And number two, it's funny because like Mel Brooks is just like, at one time I thought he was, the funniest guy who ever lived. And he is still like something like The Producers is probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I still think that is the funniest movie ever made.
Yeah. That is a very, very kind of like a DIY kind of like very just like I don't want to say a cheap kind of film, cheap kind of feel, but it doesn't have like a lot of like pomp and circumstance to it, like some other of his movies, which is funny because I was watching a Mets game once and they were talking about Blazing Saddles and they were like, that movie just doesn't stand up anymore. And I was just kind of like, I haven't seen that in years. And I'm kind of like, not sure if they're right about it, but I did watch it and it was just kind of like, I don't know if they do stand up. And it's weird because it's just like, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just nostalgia or whatever it might be, but for someone, the young ones just stands up for me more than a lot of things and influences a lot of things more than I realize.
Well, I think to that point, I think The Producers does stand the test of time more than Blazing Saddles, and in the way that I felt like Monty Python's Flying Circus was more groundbreaking than Monty Python the Holy Grail. I feel like that was the big.
You know what's really groundbreaking is watching John talk without his lips moving.
You know what? The audience and I was like, I'm not gonna.
I thought you were Man versus Bee for a while, where he's just like, "Are you doing that thing with he froze on the phone?" Which is a great fucking show, Man vs. Bee. John told me about that one. It's fucking great.
Elliott, have you seen Man vs. Bee?
Netflix.
No, I have not.
It is
Rowan Atkinson.
Okay.
It is 8 10-minute episodes, and it is Rowan Atkinson house sitting and trying to catch a bee. That is it.
That's all there is to it.
And it's amazing. He does talk.
Yeah, it really is.
But I always loved Rowan Atkinson's voice. But yeah, I do think it is the weirder stuff that takes the chances, because I think Blazing Saddles is remembered as this movie that was a big hit at the time and a generation grew up with it. But I think the producers had more of a life because it became a musical. You know, it became a touchstone. It started the career of Gene Wilder. It started the career of Mel Brooks. And the producers, I think, is a great comparison to the young ones, because the reason I love the producers so much, and you and I have talked about the producers many, many times, but I don't think we've ever recorded it. The producers, the original Mel Brooks film, starts with the two craziest people you have ever seen. And they walk into the room at an 8. And then every scene after that tops it somehow. Right. Everyone they meet is crazier than them until the movie, it just drops exhausted. It's not a long movie either.
No.
And I think the young ones, we keep talking about like, oh, it has this punk energy. But the producers, I mean, that first scene with Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder, you're going to jump on me.
I'm wearing a cardboard belt.
And in particular, Gene Wilder screams so loud, he distorts the microphones. You can't clean that up.
You know?
And it's like, you know, when you're a kid, I mean, it is called the young ones. Everybody who was making this was in their 20s. When you're a kid, you do have that energy that can be barely contained. And you don't see that much in entertainment because it usually takes you a long time to build up to that. And by the time you build up to that, your energy is different. Right. Mel Brooks is an exception. You know, Zero Mostel was an exception.
No. And these are two, middle-aged men. Well, Mostel is. Wilder was probably in his 30s in this movie, but the thing is that like these are two people who should know better, and they're like, well, let's come up with the craziest idea possible to make a fast buck, and we're going to do it by trying to fail. And the funny thing is that like with the young ones, most of their ideas, which they think that are fantastic, all seem to fail. It's just like, how are we going to escape this flood? Vivian is going to build a submarine out of cardboard, but he's not going to take anyone else on the submarine because he wants to see them drown. He's not even taking SPG.
Yeah, it is that feeling of that harnessing the manic energy.
And then the hamster gets mad at that, hits him right in the neck. He goes, he takes the hamster, starts beating him with the hammer. He goes, you're going to go out with the shark. And he goes out with the shark, and there's this like, and there's SPG, like, swimming like a hamster could swim. He was just the Jaws. I've seen all your movies.
Yes.
What is that?
Howie, you do recall that we spent an hour and a half with Joe Pakovitz discussing that.
Yeah.
Elliott,
just for the sake of, because Elliott's not seen Flood. He's got to know that, like, besides this insanity that just, permeates throughout all of Bambi, where, oh my God, all of a sudden, there's Motorhead, all of a sudden, it's just like these guys just come up with the craziest, like, oh my God, I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah, they do. And of course, but then you can't help but have you got to have a joke about a guy taking laxatives and waiting for him to explode.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there going, people gave George Lucas a hard time for fart jokes. Come on.
Yeah, but George Lucas was making a sci-fi blockbuster. Making a sitcom.
No, who farted? Was it the old guy Kenobi, or was it Chewbacca?
Nobody.
I bet you it was Kenobi, wasn't it?
No, it was Chewbacca.
Hey, excuse me on that one. I got to change. Now we know why he wears a brown robe.
Well, if it was Chewbacca, you know right away because he would fart his own fur.
You gotta clean up after your dog.
Do Wookiees poop or do they drop pellets? Is my thing. You know.
Oh no, they poop
like hamsters.
That'd be like a poop.
Ewoks drop pellets.
Yeah, that's like a deer. Yeah.
Fairies wear boots and Ewoks wear. Well, we're veering wildly off course, and we're
Are we?
The hour. Yes. So
no, because this is just like a Young Ones episode. It goes where you don't even expect it to go,
and then it just stops.
And then it stops. It's the end. Bye.
Which is what we're gonna do now. And Elliott, so watching this after about 20 minutes, you clicked into it. My final question for you is: would you watch more of this?
I'm actually going to give this a couple more episodes. I want to see if I can reach a comfort level with it and just and get more into it, because this discussion here has given me a little bit more of an appreciation of it. So,
John, can you recommend one for him? You recommend, I'll recommend.
I would go with the first one, Demolition. I think not only is it a decent pilot that sets everybody up, but it's one of the funniest episodes.
Okay. I'll go with, and it's funny because I said last week whether I liked Float or Bomb better. I think I got to go with Bomb. I'm going to change my mind.
Bomb is a very, very good one.
I'll recommend, actually, I'll give you two. Sick and Bomb.
There's only 12, so we've given you a third of the series.
You know? Might as well finish it.
Well, Elliott, I'd like to thank you for having us subject you to this. Not only to the show.
The patience of a saint.
That you had no idea. This show,
our wives won't, our girlfriends won't even go near us.
The show that is a bucket of cold water being dropped on you in bed.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then an hour of us screaming at you.
Elliott, didn't you think this was funny? That was hilarious, wasn't it?
That's what the first version of this episode podcast was.
Did you see the hippie? Vegetable rights and peace, man.
And I thought that
Elliott,
was funny.
How do we find you online in this post-Twitter world where X is full of bots?
How does everyone except Jon and Howie find you?
Well, I can be found on most social media platforms, Facebook.com, Instagram.com, and TikTok. So just look for me at Elliott Serrano, 2 L's, 2 T's, and 2 R's. I'm doing more on TikTok actually lately to see, because I'm wondering if that's going to be the last bastion of expression after some of the stuff that's been coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
So.
You got to check out our MySpace page for this.
We're on Friendster. We have separate pages for Rick, Vivian, Mike, and Neil.
Can I tell you something? We joke about
LimeWire.
We joke about MySpace, but I remember when MySpace was
huge,
the best place to go. It was. Yeah. It really was.
It was.
I don't know why.
I remember getting all of my bookings from doing stand-up through MySpace.
Yeah. Does MySpace still exist, or is it just?
Yeah,
it's there.
It's there, but no one uses it.
Yeah.
I think somebody bought it. I think Chance the Rapper bought it, or some. No, I'm thinking about something else. Justin Timberlake bought MySpace.
Oh, good for him!
Yeah. All right.
He's keeping it in a box. Drink on the toast. Just kidding.
I knew it was ending when they decided to change the format of it to make it look more like early Facebook. You're like, all the stuff that makes you, all the stuff that made them unique, they threw it out.
I tell you, I know, obviously I'm getting old, but I just went back to Facebook. It's like, I understand it. Everyone's there. Nobody's leaving it. And it's like, TikTok has a whole new vocabulary. I went through Vine and I went through,
what's Vine?
Exactly.
I don't know what Vine is.
It's
gone. My God.
Don't worry. It's gone.
It's like with LimeWire. Something.
You made videos, just videos.
People made 6-second videos.
Yeah.
That's it?
And Threads has turned into a mess. Threads was
nice. Really? I was really hoping
Threads.
It was nice for a
I'm
while.
on it, but I just haven't used it. Yeah. It was Instagram just being Twitter, but
and then now that just people are bitching about everything now on Threads. All the folks who couldn't get people to yell at on Twitter have gone over to Threads, and it's like, there we go.
Yeah, but well, we are on both YouTube. Ooh, excuse me.
God bless you.
don't have a cough button. Now you know. We there's different ways to get this podcast, and I still believe in podcasts.
Green stuff on your webcam.
But there are ways to listen to. You can listen to the old young ones through the Radio Misfits pod. Do you want us to plug the show, or would you rather we don't? Howie?
Do whatever you want.
You can listen to us anywhere you get your podcast. We're on every platform, thanks to the Radio Misfits Podcast Network, who, as always, does a great job of supporting us. But for this one, we're doing something a little different. We are doing YouTube every week. So this podcast, if this is the first time you are watching it or listening to it, you get a new episode every other week. At the first week, it is audio. The second week, it is video. There, we have been saying there will only be 12 episodes, but now look, we dropped an extra one on you.
And the third week, there are finger puppets.
And a hamster.
A hamster that yells at you and bites you in the neck.
And goes swimming with a shark.
But you can watch it on YouTube, and
we'll see about that, Pally.
You can follow our
Facebook
page. Why are you working against me?
I'm not working against you. Why are you turning red? I know. You're turning red.
We're punching up the ending. We're punching it up.
You do it. You promote it. You tell people.
I don't know what to say. What movie?
What? Now you don't know what to say.
What movie?
Easy Money.
Thank you. Great movie.
You can watch.
Again, cheap set.
I'm guessing Amazon Prime. You can watch Easy Money. That seems like
we put the toilets in this place.
I just watched All of Me on Amazon Prime in 3x4.
Lily Tomlin?
Yes, Lily Tomlin and Steve Martin. Because apparently they don't need to go widescreen. That's how deep their library runs. All right.
Go the plug. Do the plug.
Yes. I am not on my book on Instagram, but I am rarely posting. Just go to our Facebook page, The Old Young Ones, where we post all our new episodes and talk about things that are going on.
And X.
I am dreaming.
We're on X.
Yes. We also are
on X.
Tell people about X and the many Russian prostitute bots you have following us.
Oh, we are followed by many, many, many different honorable young ladies
who are clearly made out of flesh and blood.
Clearly AI. They are removed immediately as followers.
I don't even know how to end this. I don't know how to end this.
Well, why don't you just do it like the young ones would?
I'm just going to press stop.
Because we may not be the young ones.